Hey everybody, this is Professor Lilly, and we are in InDesign Week. I personally I think InDesign is probably my favorite. I mentioned before that I used Photoshop a lot as a professional web developer, and but I don't know. There's just something about being able to create kind of larger palettes on larger canvases for InDesign. That I enjoy being able to move the pieces around. And InDesign is for print publication. So I used to teach InDesign to new journalism majors who are learning how to do newspaper setup for print publication. But it's also used for all sorts of different things. For example, if you take any of the Apprentice House courses in book publication in the communication department, they will be using InDesign to create books, basically to set them up page by page and add art and unique fonts and all sorts of things. So it's a pretty extensive application that can be used for producing a one-page flyer all the way to books that are hundreds of pages. So what I've decided is that even though it says InDesign Week, I decided to make it 2 full weeks, and because previously I had it was 2 weeks, but the midterm exam was at the end of the second week, and I felt like that was it was trying to cram too much stuff, in particular because I want everyone to be critiqued. And so, if you're going to have a critique of your creative resume, you need time, first of all, to work on it. And then we need time in the Zoom labs to critique it. So, if you scroll down here, I've produced a schedule for the next 3 weeks, basically. And so, this first week is just going to be you getting into InDesign and learning how to use it and to start working on your creative resume. So in the Zoom lab, you only have to come to one Zoom lab on, oh, this is a typo, either Tuesday, oh no, it's not a typo, either here, Tuesday or Thursday. And in those labs, I will just demonstrate how to kind of visually get started in InDesign with your creative resume and how to start thinking about it, and how to do some things like placing art and placing text and starting to kind of arrange what your creative resume will look like. And then so then for next week, you yeah, for some reason, yeah, this one is wrong. So I'll take that out. So next week, on the 6th and 8th, we will have Zoom lab critiques, and you have to sign up for one of those days. So up here at the very top, it says sign up for a creative resume critique time. It's just a little wiki tool, and the wiki tool allows like anyone can go in there and edit. So we basically have 4 critique times. So you have to sign up for one of these 4. So Tuesday at 11, or Tuesday at 12:30, or Thursday at 11, or Thursday at 12:30. And you just come into whichever one you want and hit edit, and then the maximum would be 9 people in one of those sessions. So this will make it a lot more kind of doable, having smaller groups for critiques, and in the huge, if we had 17 people, it would just make it too difficult to pull it off. So make sure you come in this week and sign up for a time. Everyone has to have be critiqued. So and then at the end of that week on Sunday the 11th is when it will be due, and then so you'll have a few days to take the feedback you got, the critique, and make your creative resume designs better. And then the week after that is when we will do the midterm. So the middle of October, on Tuesday, we'll have a Zoom lab review, and then we'll have the midterm exam. And another reason why I kind of extended our the timeline a little bit is because we haven't had time for me to put up a lecture about some of those reading materials, like the history of the web and things like that. And image formats, we haven't really talked to. I mean, I've told you which ones to use for photos versus uh, graphics, but and then for InDesign, your format's going to be PDF, so you're going to export it out as a PDF when you're done. But anyway, I haven't had time to lecture on that yet, so we need a little bit extra time to make sure you're prepared for the midterm exam. And the midterm will be on October 15th, and it will be at your class time. So whichever section you're in, at the beginning of that official class time, the Moodle exam will open and you'll be able to start taking it. But we'll talk more about that as we get closer to it. Okay, so what are you going to be creating? Well, I've made this video here where I go through. Let me just open it. I think it's up here too. You can see here what the creative resumes will look like. So I've showed some examples of what other students have done. And there's lots of different formats that you can use. And some of these examples, and I talk about it, I kind of critiquing what some other students have done, are probably, I've critiqued them. There's some problems with them, some things they did well. But a creative resume is basically, in the graphic design world, a lot of times you submit a resume that's more visually appealing to show off your design skills. So you're not sending in the boring business resume, but something that's more creative, hence why it's called a creative resume. And in those resumes, you need to put a monogram and an icon. So this is the stuff from Illustrator. And you also have the option of putting in your profile photo. And so in this video, I'll kind of go through. So here's an example, a nice example of a profile photo, and the icon art that the student made in the Illustrator section, and then choosing some nice elegant fonts. Now, you're gonna have to have so you should have your resume already from the Cloud Storage Week, App Week, and you might have to do a little bit of work. So, if you hardly had anything in the resume, you need enough so that you can practice placing the different sections of the resume. Generally, creative resumes don't have quite as the same number of words, because again, we're focusing on visual appeal here, but you need enough so that you can show me that you know how to place text and working with different fonts, and being able to choose different fonts and work with font colors and things like that. So anyway, and there's a lot of good examples of different ways to do it. So you can see that this layout, using these shapes, is very creative, and different than some of these other ones. So part of it, you definitely need to watch this video to kind of get a sense of, okay, what I could do, what can I do, like how can I kind of start to think about what my design might be. So anyway, yeah, watch that video. And also, if you click on right here at the bottom where it says sample creative resumes, so that's a bunch of resumes from previous semesters. So just to kind of get ideas for what you can do in terms of trying to think about your creative resume. So for this assignment, I want 2 versions, okay? So 2 different versions with different design concepts, different fonts, different colors. Again, it's similar to the Photoshop web banners, where you kind of we're trying to play with 2 different things for the different web banners, like different designs. I want 2 different versions with different creative aspects and different layouts. And that's the assignment. You're basically creating 2 one-page resumes, creative resumes. And let's see what other. Okay, so how are you going to do that? Like I said, in Zoom Lab, I'll show you how to get started, but we have 2 tutorials here. So This is getting started with InDesign and lynda.com. I recommended just this one section, but there's lots of sections where we can get into working with fonts, working with text, placing images, layout, all sorts of different things. And then this one here, you definitely need to follow along with creating a flyer in InDesign. And again, since you're doing a one-page creative resume, so it's very similar. It's basically like you're creating a one-page a flyer or a poster that you would print out. And this just goes through how to start a new document, all the common tools, so on and so forth. And so all the basics that you need to know in order to start putting things together for your creative resume. So definitely do look into that one before you come to Zoom Lab on Tuesday or Thursday. I think that's it for now. This is the Dropbox here. This is where you will submit your PDF, and what I'm going to ask you to do is take your two one-page creative resumes. You're going to export them as PDFs, and then you're going to merge that PDF, so now you have a two-page PDF. So it makes it easier to submit, and it's and easier for me to grade because I'll just open your one PDF, and then I'll look at the first page, which will be one design of your creative resume, and then your second page will be your second design. So that's it. I will see you in Zoom Lab on Tuesday or Thursday to answer your questions, and then make sure you sign up for your creative resume your critique time next week so you can have your design. Ideally, for the critique, and I'll talk more about this in the Zoom Labs, they don't have to be completely 100% finished, but the more kind of polished you are, the more that you think you're finished with your design, then it'll be easier for me to give you feedback and other students to give you feedback as well. You only have to have one design. If you have both by next week, that's great, but you just have to have one design ready to show us. You'll share your screen so you can just have it in InDesign. It's probably better that if you export it as a PDF first, just because it's easier to see what the design really is going to look like in print or PDF when you do that. But you'll share it with us in class at your critique time next week. Okay, so see everybody in class. Again, make sure you watch this video here. It's only 13 minutes where I go through and talk about different designs students have done in the past, and then start getting into these two tutorials. All right, have a great week, and I'll see you in the Zoom Lab.